Is an anxiety disorder permanent? Depending on who you ask, they'll say different things. You might have your doctor saying this is just always something you're gonna have to deal with, you're gonna have to manage. You might be hearing people say you can't overcome anxiety. That's something I hear a lot, considering what I do is helping people overcome their anxiety. One of the first things I get told is, hey Shaan, I thought you can't overcome that, right? And you might be going through this too, and you might be having this fear too, where you feel like you just can't overcome it. You can't recover from this. So can you live your life like this? Can you be living your life dealing with intense panic attacks, intense physical symptoms, intense intrusive thoughts, the feelings of unreality? Is this always something you're always gonna have to manage for the rest of your life? Well, in this video, I'm gonna break down exactly the truth about disorder and the permanence behind it. So with that said, let's get it started. So I'm gonna give a little disclaimer in this video saying, look, anxiety is not a permanent disorder, okay? You can fully overcome it. If you're new to the channel and you're really trying to understand how do you actually overcome this, well, the idea is by desensitizing your nervous system. And what I've done is I've written out a blueprint down below that really breaks down how to desensitize your nervous system so that your symptoms end up going away. What you might be realizing that you might be doing is you might be using coping crutches or lifestyle adjustments to try to feel better. But what you end up realizing is you end up getting hooked on them. You have to rely on them. And the truth is that if you can just desensitize your nervous system, well, the consequence is that you don't have to rely on these things, just like you didn't have to rely on this when you first fell in the cycle. So the desensitization blueprint, the link is down below. It will really break down how the recovery journey looks like, what to expect, how to respond, and really just giving you a overall roadmap of how the recovery journey process looks. Now, with that said, I'm going to be breaking down this fear that a lot of people have, which is anxiety a permanent disorder, right? And this was a fear I had. If somebody has an anxiety disorder, that means they're stuck with it. And this is really interesting because I came from a psychology background. I got my degree in psychology, and even I thought somebody struggling with anxiety, it's a permanent condition because that's what I read in the textbook. And so the problem was when I was going to doctors trying to figure this out, when I was going to therapists and they said, you're struggling with anxiety, you're experiencing anxiety, I didn't want to hear it because if I'm struggling with anxiety, to me that meant there's nothing I can do to overcome it. So what I did to myself was I tried to convince myself that it wasn't anxiety. I was essentially trying to hope that there was something physically wrong. Now looking back, I'm so glad that there wasn't anything physically wrong and that it was just anxiety. But you might be having these fears too, and you might be having people tell you that this is a permanent condition. The first thing I want to tell you is that there's a lot of misconception with anxiety, right? You might even hear this from therapists and certain doctors. Now, the truth is, in the anxiety recovery mentorship program where we're guiding people through recovery, the clients we deal with the most often are actually people in the medical industry. Lots of nurses, doctors, surgeons, therapists, people that are in the healthcare field. They're also struggling with anxiety and we help them overcome it and go back to living. And it's very interesting for these people because they're like, Shaan, I see people that are struggling with anxiety every day in my office. And now I'm, getting help from you. It's kind of a weird, situation mentally. And I totally understand. The point of me telling you this is to help you understand that there's just a lot of misinformation around anxiety, right? Especially anxiety disorders. I want you to think about anxiety disorders this way, okay? Your anxiety is just an alarm system. Okay, it's designed to protect you from threats. Now, there's a default built-in alarm system, right? Like, let's say if you see a bear, if you see a tiger, if you see a snake, you don't need to be taught to run away from that, right? That's danger. You kind of develop that on your own. It's part of your instincts, it's part of your DNA. However, there's a dynamic part of anxiety to your alarm system that teaches you what's a threat, what's not, right? Like for example, if a bus comes at you, you learn pretty quickly, I want to move away from the bus. Did anyone need to teach you that? No, it happened on its own. The nervous system taught itself. And so struggling with an anxiety disorder, all that means is that your alarm system's out of whack. It doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean there's anything medically wrong with you, right? This is assuming you've gotten everything ruled out by your doctor, right? There's nothing medically wrong with you. It's not that you're inherently broken or unique or anything like that. Your alarm system is out of whack. Now, why is it out of whack? Again, that blueprint's really going to help you in the beginning steps, helping you understand that your nervous system is out of whack because what's happening is that your nervous system says, Shaan is experiencing a lot of stress. There must be something dangerous. Let me be a little bit more aware so I can protect Shaan. It's an adaptive advantage. Now, what's happening there is that when people are experiencing intense symptoms, they don't know why that's happening. And what they do in response is they start becoming fearful of the symptom. Oh, my panic attacks, what if I pass out from it? What if my breathlessness leads to me passing out? What if my what if thoughts are something that actually comes true? Now they become fearful of the symptom. What that does is that teaches the nervous system that there's something wrong. Right? So the nervous system says, look at the way Shaan's responding. Shaan's responding in fear, he's concerned, he's stressed. We're gonna stay sensitized. The whole purpose of me telling you this is to help you realize that your nervous system is just out of whack. And here's the interesting thing about your nervous system. It's dynamic. It's not like once it goes out of whack, it's there for life. It's not like that. Your nervous system is always learning. It's always adapting. And ironically, your nervous system doesn't want to be in this state. You might feel like this is something your nervous system is trying to force you in, where even if you try to help desensitize it, it wants to stay stuck. The truth is that your nervous system actually doesn't want to be in this state. But your nervous system doesn't care what you think right now, because what you've done is that you've showed your nervous system that there's a threat. Now your nervous system says there's nothing more important than Shaan's survival, so I'm gonna keep him alive. Even if Shaan's acting normal and there's no threats, I'm gonna stay alive a little bit longer just in case there is a threat. Now what happens over time as you practice patience is the nervous system says, okay, we'll back off a little bit. Oh wait, was that something to be concerned about? Let me go ahead and all systems go. And that's when people might experience, a setback or something like that. So the idea is that your nervous system is always recalibrating. But what the sad news is that we've lived in a culture where there's an idea of permanence around it, where people haven't really fully understood, how anxiety works. Now, people are getting better at it, but what's happening is that old remnants of preconceived notions of what anxiety was or mental illness was still carries over. And it's hard to change those beliefs. But the fact of the matter is, of course you can overcome these things. These aren't permanent disorders. These aren't something that you're always gonna have to deal with for the rest of your life. But the key here is that do you know the steps to come out? This is really where people get stuck, and this is where I find people really get trapped in the anxiety recovery journey because they don't know what they're doing. And what happens as a consequence is they put too much effort. They start focusing on this, they start focusing on this, they start focusing on this, and they're doing everything they can. And what happens is because they're doing 20 different things trying to overcome their anxiety, they don't really move the needle that much, not much progresses. And what happens is they become discouraged. When people join the mentorship, we actually make them do less things than what they were doing. Typically, we see what they're doing and they're doing 50 different things. We say, cut all that out, focus on this specific thing. And that's it. And what they do is that they push the needle so much more. Really what you're dealing with is an issue of how to respond to the anxiety and letting go of these notions of permanence, right? If you go on forums, if you go on communities, people will talk about how this is a lifelong sentence and I wouldn't wish this upon anybody, not even my worst enemy. The truth of the matter is that a lot of those places, unfortunately, are very focused on victimizing themselves, right? And what you will find too is that when you see people recover, and we've seen this a lot, when people recover and they go back to their same forums, you might think people say, oh my God, you recovered, how was it? What they do instead is they come with skepticism, they come with disbelief, and they'll call people liars, people that have truly recovered. Because what happens is that they're very set on their victim mindset, and that if you say you recovered, now you're challenging that victim mindset. There are some people that have the desire to recover, but aren't committed to recovery. There's a difference here, right? There's a difference between desire and commitment. Very different things. And I've personally found people that are committed to recovery, small group, right? And so if you're one of those people, don't let these forums discourage you. Don't let any of these other people discourage you. There are people around the world that have overcome this, right? I managed to overcome it. I struggled with generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, health anxiety, OCD, and depression. And now I don't struggle with any of those things. Am I some miracle patient? Am I having documentaries or interviews of the first person that managed to overcome all these? Absolutely not. People are recovering all over the world. It's not a big deal. But what happens is that when you're in communities like that, where it's a little bit toxic, where it's a lot of victimizing, it can make it feel like what you're going to be struggling with is very permanent. So I would say stay away from those groups. Focus on overcoming your anxiety. There's a bunch of resources down below. There's recovery stories down below. There's that desensitization blueprint. There's also a free book. You can apply for mentorship if you like. but really focusing on overcoming this and desensitizing your nervous system and not playing this mental game of, is this going to be permanent? Is this not? So with that said, I want to get into the subscriber comment for the day. Now, this is actually a comment I actually responded to, but I wanted to dive in a little bit more. So this is from Yvonne. And Yvonne says, so easy to be sensitized and so hard to desensitize. Seems that brain is working against humans. So he's actually right on the first part, right? It is easy to be sensitized and it is hard to desensitize. Now you might want to ask yourself, why would your brain and body do that? Why would your brain and body have more of a predilection towards being sensitized and as opposed to not being sensitized? Right? Now take a second and really think about this. Even if you need to pause this video, do it. The reason why is because your body and mind are designed for survival, right? What's more important in survival? If a tiger comes at you, that you get on your fight or flight responses on, or your body taking its sweet time, oh, I just ate a cheeseburger, let me digest and then I'll run away. No, time is of the essence. This is why your body goes into fight or flight quickly, because if that wasn't the case, we wouldn't survive as a species. So it's very important to understand that your body and mind do have a predilection towards survival, because at the end of the day, survival is baseline. Now, where I disagree with this is where it says, seems that brain is working against humans, right? That's not true. I know when you're going through the recovery journey, it feels like that, but as somebody who's gone out of it, who has helped people recover, and really once you start understanding the mechanics of anxiety, the brain doesn't want to do that, right? The body actually wants to conserve energy. The brain wants to conserve energy. Being anxious, being sensitized actually is very resource demanding. It actually requires a lot of energy. The body doesn't like that. And so what I just did was I ended up responding saying, us being able to respond to stress so quickly is exactly why we've been able to survive so well as a species. And Yvonne brings up a good point that I think a lot of people talk about, that a lot of people experience here. It says, but sympathetic nervous system is so dumb when it can't get the fact that we are safe and cool. We always have to show it and teach it. That it's at the wrong time. If it's autonomic, then it should be concluded that it is okay and no need for push start. He brings up a really good point, right? I understand that we fearing of the sensation makes it go nuts, but it's so bizarre. For example, someone with anxiety have skin rashes, how that should help if bear is chasing you. So these are really interesting points, right? And so he's kind of right. Now you got to understand, the nervous system is going to be very stubborn. It's not going to want to let go just because you say there's no tiger, right? The reason why the nervous system takes so long to readjust is because it doesn't trust you. It says, well, you might not think there's a tiger, but there might be a tiger, right? And at the end of the day, all your nervous system cares about is being right. It only needs to be wrong once. If it's wrong once, if it takes your lead and you're wrong once, it's game over. The tiger comes to get you. So the nervous system is actually very smart. It's gone through this a lot. There's been millions of years of evolution for it to get to exactly where it's at. Now, in terms of the skin rash, what's happening is that you're making the skin rash the tiger, right? The skin rash is XYZ, right? Because there is no tiger and your brain and body are looking for a tiger. So what it does is that, well, what's something that's fearful? It's that rash, right? And so again, it's about teaching your nervous system and recognizing that you can't get frustrated about this, right? Your body and your mind are on your side. They really are. I know it's hard to believe. It's really easy to feel like you're broken, that it's permanent. Not the case. The body and mind are on your side. Give it a little bit of rest, a little bit of empathy. You know, it's just trying to protect you. And if you could just focus on responding and just giving a little bit more time, the body will learn and the mind will learn as well. So with that said, I hope this video helps. I'll see you in the next one.